Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nathan de Groot, and I'm the host of the talk show that we will hold at the Data Science Experience Day. We have three guests from different companies and a sidekick that I will introduce to you briefly in a moment. But I would like to know first how many people are watching and what are your opinions and what is your intelligence. So for that, we would like to ask a few questions through Mentimeter. The first two questions we ask right now, and then later on in the discussion we ask you a few more questions about your opinions. So if you could please, if you hear this, there's a 20 seconds delay. So if you hear this, please take your phone or extra device and go to menti.com. And in the screen you will find the instruction, and that will also be copy-pasted in the chat. Menti.com is the website, and the code is 7371446. And the first question is to see how intelligent you are. If you choose an answer to this question at random, what is the chance you will be correct? A, 25, B, 0, C, 50, or D, 25%. And we will see now what the scores are. At least not everyone agrees, it seems. And there will be more scores coming in very soon. Let's see what Emile would say. Emile Aarts, professor, artificial intelligence, a reliable source, so to say. Which answer is correct according to you?
Well, we always look at the results of the students first, and then we dream up an answer.
Okay. All right. I see it is very mixed. And it could be also a wicked problem where there's no real answer possible. But it's interesting to see that here the data that comes in is very different from each other. All right. Interesting also that A is more popular than D.
Yes.
Whereas the value is the same. I don't know how we can interpret this. But for now, this is already, and B is also a little bit popular. We go to the second question that tells us more about the viewers. And that's what we want to know. Why did you choose data science as a profession or as a study? We have 5 options because of the impact on society, because of the career perspectives that are bright, because of the problem-solving nature, a wide range of applications, or because there was no alternative. There are multiple options that you could choose, I guess, and then we get a glimpse of your drivers. And that's what we also would like to know of our panelists, of course. And at least everyone had an alternative so far. So it seems that the wide range of applications is the most popular this far. And interesting is that impact on society doesn't score that high.
But I would assume, Nathan, that no alternative would be the best answer, because if you combine all the other 4, then the 5th answer is what should be the outcome.
Yeah, no, then it would be a trick question without intent. So then we know at least your answer, Emile Aarts. And now it's time to introduce the guest of this talk show to you. And first, let me introduce the sidekick to you, Emile Aarts. He has an extensive career in artificial intelligence and data science, amongst others at Philips as a Rector Magnificus at Tilburg University. And currently, he is a professor of social and digital entrepreneurship here at JADS. Emile, why would you choose this no alternative option? Because of the combined value of the other 4?
Well, given what is happening in society, and if you are at a certain crossroad to make a choice, then the only alternative that makes sense at this very moment is to become a data scientist.
Because of COVID, you mean?
Because of everything.
Because of
already 10 years ago, Sloan and Harvard Business School coined the notion that the data scientist would become the most sexiest job of the 21st century. That is a well-known expression, and we live by that. So what we see still in COVID times is that the quest for well-educated data scientists is still there and growing. So it is an excellent choice for that matter.
Okay. Your topic of your research and education is also entrepreneurship, digital entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. Also very sexy, I dare say. How does that relate to this Data Science Experience Day, where a lot of companies are represented? Does it, for instance, mean that if you're an entrepreneur that you cannot go to a big corporate organization?
No, not at all. What I think is that looking at the incumbents, as we call them, so the big corporates that rule the world, they always assume, or almost always assume, a responsibility for what is going on in society. And this is truly something that is also being accelerated by Corona over the past year. So what is good for society is good for business, is one of the statements of many of these big companies. And that's why they assume a large responsibility to, let's say, have product market combinations that drive sustainability and a better world in the broadest sense from their perspective. And that's also where the entrepreneurship comes in. Many of these big companies have something that is called intrapreneurship. So they often set apart groups of young, talented people with creative ideas and challenge them to, within, let's say, the framework of the bigger company and the channels that the bigger company has, to come up with truly novel directions and ideas. And that's good to have such a continuum, also connected to the startups and scale-ups that are being, let's say, developed outside the companies, either to spin out, to spin up, or to spin in activities. So it's a continuum, more or less.
Okay, and given the amounts of data that are being produced every day and the amounts of global competition, do you think data science is top sport, as we say in Dutch, is a professional, the highest possible forms of sport?
Yeah, of course, from the perspective of our league, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
That is not, let's say, surprising, I would expect. But also, if we look at the broader picture, I just happened to be this morning in a kind of conference at the European level, and there is what you see is that I never witnessed that before, is that we have then the bigger companies being present in such a call to state their role within Europe, within the vicinity of what is called human-centric AI. But also on the other hand, you see governments, you see representatives of NGOs, as we call them. And for the first time in my life, I witnessed, let's say, a development that truly combines all the helix dimensions, as we call it, of society. So the private sector, the public sector, the educational sector, the sector that represents the citizens, as we call it. And that is truly challenging and interesting. So if you are, let's say, a mathematician and you really love to do the deep learning, then this is a great study. But if you are interested in advancing society, also from a, let's say, perspective of well-being, of sustainability, then also data science is an excellent career perspective.
Okay, thank you, Emile. One more final question for you, because we would have loved to sit together at one table here in this beautiful chapel, also with the other panelists. However, due to the COVID restrictions and the current situation, that is not possible. How do you think this affects education and student life in general?
Yeah, there are, generally speaking, two answers to the question, a positive one and a negative one. Let me start with the negative one. What we often see is that the students are, let's say, put in isolation, as we call it. We even have lost track of some of the students in the sense that we don't know where they are, literally. And that's not a very good thing. And we also know from the students with whom we have a contact that they suffer a little bit, especially the students coming from abroad. Well, the social life is not there anymore. We all know these discussions, but it is actually true. And we see that almost on a daily basis when we, let's say, engage with with these young people. And that really deserves attention. What the ninth thing and the good message part is that COVID accelerates the digital transformation, as we call it. So we often have been talking about let's say, blended learning, combining the physical and the online aspects because we have the digital technology at our hands. But what we always say is what we have been trying to achieve in this domain in over 10 years, over the past years, is surpassed by Miss Corona, as we call her, because what she did is within, let's say, half a year's time, she really urged for this direction to put emphasis on it. And I'm also very happy to state here that I witnessed one of the meetings, for instance, with ASML. So they really use these systems to the max. And of course, they have the money to do so. But we can learn from them how they do it. And maybe we can speak about this, Thomas, at some point later in this call, because I really would like to compliment you and your company for taking a leadership position as such in this law. So there's a good part to it, and there is a challenging part. Let's call it like that, Nathan.
Okay, I hope we combine those two also in this talk show. It is now time to also introduce you to the three guests that we have selected. Let's start with Bart Bierling in a moment from Goal 3, a startup that is also part of the JADS playground here. Joost Meijer from Itility, and we have Thomas Rondeel from ASML with us. Bart, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us if you're a data scientist? To what extent do you consider yourself a data scientist?
So I'm Bart Bierling. I've studied industrial design at the Technical University in Eindhoven, both the bachelor and the master. And during my studies, I've always focused mainly on the medical domain. So I've been working on a new kind of sensor for the neonatal intensive care unit. And I've done some basic analysis with this data. And in the end, this project has resulted in the startup Goal 3. And within Goal 3, we want to develop a basic monitoring system for monitoring patients in the intensive care units, specifically for African settings. And one of our core focuses will be to develop algorithms which will help detect serious deteriorations. Because as you can imagine, in African context, there is a lot less clinicians and nurses available. And we think, and one of our co-founders is a medical specialist with experience in Tanzania, is that having an algorithm which helps detect the patients which are at the highest risk of deteriorating would have a very big impact on the care in low-resource settings. And so I've been trying to learn a little bit about data science. So I've done some online courses. So I don't really consider myself a data scientist, but I've learned enough to at least know a little bit about it. And I think the main challenge I want to tackle in the upcoming years within our startup is how to communicate the information coming from such an algorithm, because that's one of the most crucial parts after you have developed an algorithm, is how to make sure that people are using it correctly and not interpreting it in the wrong way.
All right. Thank you for this introduction, Bart. I would now like to move to Thomas Rondeel from ASML. Thomas, yes. A few people have seen you in the presentation or met you in the virtual market already. For those who don't know you, can you briefly introduce yourself and your role at ASML?
Yes, sure. So Thomas Rondeel, 32 years old, 31, sorry, almost 32. Don't get ahead too fast. Yeah. Just passing 30, it's all whatever, right? Yeah. So no, I've been with ASML for a little over a year now, and currently I'm the team lead for the business intelligence team within our supply chain management practice. Well, one of the subdomains in the supply chain management practice.
All right, and you got already a compliment from Emile Aarts. Yes. Do you recognize that, and do you get a lot of compliments like this?
In general, or for ASML? No, okay.
For ASML, I mean.
Oh, right. So I think especially, I don't know if that was exactly what Emile was referring to, but especially on the virtual reality aspect, so the augmented reality glasses for servicing has been spotlighted in the media. I think that is something people generally refer to. Yeah, but I also get a lot of questions on how do you actually deal with COVID during your, let's say, during your work. How does that, for example, impact people working in the factory versus in the office, etc. Yeah. So yeah, it's really much a topic that's very much alive for, I think, for everybody. How it is being dealt.
And Nathan, if you allow me to, these are excellent examples, Thomas. But what I was referring to is. I happened to be present in one of your town meetings. So what I saw is that your company really is capable of, let's say, one of the first I witnessed even, so large digital environments where all, let's say, the persons who are invited to such a meeting are present. And also, let's say, your management knows how to, let's say, play this instrument. To, let's say, move from the normal, ordinary physical contact that they have with the employees to this online, and that was what I was referring to.
Yeah. So in general, let's say they've had a half a year to practice, I would say, and it's was good that that was adopted fast. I think it was a bit of a hurdle maybe in the beginning. But overall, I think that's going fairly well nowadays. And especially on the topic of the town halls, that's I think also a good example of what you just mentioned as a spin-ins, basically, right? Yeah. We have experience with spin-outs, of course, being from former Philips as well. So, but on the spin-in part, we also tend to do pretty well with really accelerating the digital, let's say, rollout of initiatives. ASML.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Thomas, for your introduction as well. Now let's move to Joost Meijer from Itility. Joost, could you also tell us about your role and perhaps also your main challenge in these times?
Yeah, so my name is Joost Meijer. I'm 41. I'm working for Itility. My background is in artificial intelligence. I studied that on Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. My first job or my first internship was actually at the Philips Research in the home lab, and I think I at least know Emile from there, but yes. I don't think Emile knows me from there. Oh, just one student. So I started there, and I don't think you also had a question, Nathan. Are you a data scientist? I don't think I'm a pure data scientist. But I've, in all the jobs that I had so far, always used data to do smart things, to create value. And in that sense, I think data at this moment is very much overhyped to keep it a challenging discussion. And I'm always trying to find out how we can help, in this case, in Itility, our customers to make sense of the data and to do something smart with it. But in the end, to address the bottom line of the company. So really use it to create the value for the business.
So it's not a goal, but a means to a different goal.
Exactly.
Well, Nathan, this is great. If I may add a few words to that. What we see with this lineup is that we have what we call T-shaped persons in the lineup. And that is also for our students very interesting to know that a data scientist can be either a specialist or a generalist if he or she can make the connection. And we see excellent examples of this now in let's say, around the virtual table with our guests. So that's a nice thing to know and to mention.
It's even nicer that I prepared a question about this. So let's go there and let's see if we can do that. And we didn't script this because I need to skip one. This one, the best data scientists are generalists or specialists. And of course, we have a 20-second delay, so it takes a while before the scores will come in. The code is still the same for the people using a device and watching this, so you can also think about it for yourself. And I will ask the panelists in a moment to reflect on this question, both on their perspective and both on the scores that will come in. So perhaps let's see who can react first to this. Joost, perhaps you can start with this. What is your take on it? Generalist or specialist?
Yeah, so I think there's actually two types of people. If you can do two things. You can become a great data scientist and go really deep into the details of what machine learning and other techniques can help us with. But you need to know that you're a specialist then. So you need to know that you're the one that goes really deep into the details, and that you are aware of that, and that you can then find a generalist to work together with to, in the end, deliver a solution to your customer, or to deliver the value to your customer. If you're not aware of that you're a specialist, then it can become problematic.
Okay, I don't know if there's a correlation, but while you were talking, the specialist picked up a little bit. But I would like to know, is there any of the panelists who thinks the opposite? Or who has something to add?
Well, one important question, of course, if this, you put a little bit, let's say, a burden on the shoulder of these specialists, because they should tell that and be aware that they are a specialist. But I think that this also holds true for the generalists. So more specifically, they are part of a team. And then the question could be, what makes the team tick? So what are you in your company, for instance, doing to make these, let's say, two flocks talk to each other in a constructive way?
Okay, let's see what Thomas thinks. You are a team lead, so maybe what does it take for a team lead? Do you need to be a generalist as a team lead?
A generalist, yes. That has merely to do with the fact that I probably have a 10-year delay on, let's say, or knowledge gap on what exactly can be done within data science. But more importantly, so what you want to achieve as a team is that you bring together the different aspects that are important to, let's say, bring the most value, or let's say do optimizations, etc. for your company. So you always need a combination of people that know the technical detail, and of course there are even graduations in there, right? So you have people that are very experienced with R, Python, and those that know the business logic that you need to extract from the different source systems, right? So that being SAP and other large systems. But you also need to understand, and that is what I think makes the excellent data scientists, so not even the best, but the excellent ones, is that they understand the business that they're operating in. Yeah. So can you, with your knowledge, can you come up with the business logic that is needed in order to formulate models that are, let's say, fit to purpose, so that actually mean something in a business context? And that takes experience and guidance, but that is how you build your, let's say, your role.
Okay, and Bart, final word, final reflection from your side?
So I think from a healthcare perspective, it's really important that you are a bit of a generalist, because for most of the features, and for healthcare especially, it's really important that you know what the input is of your algorithm. So if you don't know how important certain features are, so if you don't know what the heart rate especially, or the respiration rate in the end will mean for the algorithm, you won't know. It's really hard to just create an algorithm without the background knowledge of these features. So for optimizing, especially, it might be needed, but for the first iterations of the algorithm, it's really important that the person who builds the algorithm is a generalist and has knowledge of what kind of feature you will be using.
All right, thank you, Bart. The next question or the next statement that we would like to pose is based also on your field, healthcare. AI has a viable future in healthcare, and we ask the participants whether they agree or disagree. And of course, you could agree because of the need and the impact that it can have, and you can disagree perhaps because of the limitations and the ethical considerations that can perhaps limit the potential of AI. And then we can see what people vote for, and then I would like to know from Bart first, what is your consideration given that you are active in this field? People tend to agree, I see, so perhaps it's interesting to see if we can also find counter arguments. Bart, what is your take?
Of course, like I said in my introduction, I completely agree. It's a viable option for improving healthcare, but one of the crucial parts will be to involve the clinicians and the experts who will in the end be using the algorithms and the output of these systems. So in the end, I don't think it will replace clinicians in the end, but it will just be tools to help improve their productivity and improve the outcome. So I think especially in imaging, there is a lot of AIs which have proven to be already as good or better than clinicians in just identifying, for example, tumors in these images. So I think there is a really good example where it's a tool which helps the productivity of these clinicians.
Okay, Emile, I know you're part of AI coalitions and boards and all kind of meetings. Is there not a sector different from healthcare that is more prone to experiments and innovation?
Yes, the answer is that there are many sectors that are equally promising. Agro and food, for instance, is one that is ramping up very, very rapidly, but also, of course, the high-tech sector, and especially, let's say, in the brainport area. And well, we have with ASML an excellent example where also, let's say, the future of their business, I would be inclined to say heavily depends on the breakthroughs and the way they can incorporate data science and artificial intelligence into their products, so to speak, or their services. But Nathan, if I may, I'm so puzzled by the two persons who disagree.
Yeah.
I'm eager to learn from their arguments could we have them in the call, please?
We don't know if we can dial them in. The moment, what we can do is that we can ask them to comment if they
that
dare.
Would be great that they join us through the chat or whatever.
Yeah.
They can use a pseudonym. We won't shoot them, but we will disagree with them.
It depends a bit on how you formulate viable, right? I guess, but at least that would be my take.
Yeah, that is the escape, I guess, Thomas.
Yes. So if you say AI is going to take over the world and you're not going to check it anymore, then maybe you have a pretty good case. For example, when you look at the Facebooks of these worlds, let's say, how do these algorithms work, and are they actually working as they should, right? With all types of filters and whatever not happening nowadays. But yeah, who knows? Maybe they have a comment.
yeah. Let's see. And Joost, do you have another opinion?
No, I agree that of course AI can be very helpful, but you always have to be careful that you use it in the right way, and that you keep humans in the loop as well. And I think not just to make sure that the outcomes of the AI are correct, but also that the people that need the healthcare are treated by humans, because I don't think that I don't want to be treated by a robot very soon. I want to sit next to a doctor who can explain what is happening in an emotional way. And yes, we can do emotions in the future, maybe also with AI, but I prefer the flesh and blood for a while.
Okay.
Let's suppose, Joost, that this robot doctor, physician, is more patient, more knowledgeable. You can reach him 24 hours a day, and that the advices he or she gives are better than the ones coming out of the person in flesh and blood. What would you say?
I think it would, for me, be a good augmentation of what somebody of the flesh and blood is not able to give me, like calling him at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I think I still want to have the feeling that I have a clinician that I can contact and talk with, also about being human.
Yeah. Because of a basic need that you have. That makes sense. Sure.
Isn't that very old-fashioned, Joost?
Maybe I am old-fashioned. I didn't go into the AI field because I thought we were going to take over the world with just AI. Okay. I think it's really good to get the mix, to use AI where it's good at, and then also get the human into the loop where it's also necessary, and where the human can excel.
Yeah, and in your introduction, you mentioned that AI or data science is a bit overhyped. Do you have one example of that, perhaps?
I think nowadays, like we're trying to solve every problem with AI or data science, and sometimes the problems we're trying to solve might not be so complex that you need very complex technologies for it.
Okay.
So I see that a lot that we want to use AutoML, for example, the automated machine learning for certain problems. But if you just try to understand the problem a little bit better, you might be able to solve it with easier techniques.
Okay. Well, in the chat there is no argument coming up.
No.
Also, no humans, no AI. So let's go to the next statement. This one, some people already voted for it. I thought it was an interesting one because if we compare data science students to medical students, should data scientists also take an oath? That is the question. Like the oath of Hippocrates that all medical students need to take. It would be, of course, a slightly different oath, and I'm surprised to see that people think it's a good idea. Do you agree? Let's first ask Thomas.
So if you're making decisions on life and death, then yes, then I agree. The question is, what kind of oath are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So just like medical students, if you're going to say, well, I tend to take care of, let's say, to the best of my abilities to the benefit of the company, the data science community, the what?
The world,
life itself.
Yeah.
Then why is this bounded to medical students alone? Shouldn't we all do that then?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, the point is, of course, if you think about medical students, they get a lot of knowledge that can also harm people. So one of the crucial parts in this medical oath is also that one of the first parts is do no harm. It's very simple. And with data science, you can do a lot of harm potentially. So that's something to consider in times of elections and influences and geopolitical struggles. Emile, do you agree with this? I'm curious.
No, I tend to disagree, but it's not a black and white issue, I would say. First comment is that there is a lot of discussion going on this topic in Europe, for instance, because they take this human-centric approach. So this question, for that matter, pops up almost immediately. There is a white book on the topic that is being sent around for consultation at present. So many of the big companies like Thomas's are being asked to reflect on the issues. What we think is the solution in general terms is that we should educate the young data scientists to exhibit the kind of what we call responsible behavior. And that is not, let's say, done by imposing rules or asking for oaths. So it's like a little bit the same discussion we have in the Netherlands with respect to adhering to the 1.5 meter rules. So the Prime Minister says, well, take your responsibility and act accordingly. And others say, no, we want to impose rules. So the question is, what kind of a community would we like to be? What is our culture in terms of profession and our attitude? And I think that going from our culture, I would expect that teaching people to act and behave responsibly and have an open discussion on how this should be done as part of the way we conduct our profession, but also during our education, would be the appropriate answer to this question.
Okay, one interesting comment in the chat is that I would not compare a data science oath to a medical oath, but rather to a banker oath. That is an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Joost, you raised your hand. Do you want to comment? You're on mute, I think, still. Quite sure. Yeah.
There's one other angle that I want to highlight, is that I also think that of course, you can take an oath, you can promise to do no harm, but I think the systems are also becoming more and more complex, that it's sometimes difficult to even understand what impact you have with the things you're doing. So I think if we look at companies like Facebook and Google, they also at the beginning said that they would do no harm, but also due to their commercial business, they have made a lot of decisions and maybe not so very explicit decisions which are changing the world. And the question is, does the data scientist at Facebook have the feeling that they are changing the world? So the world is becoming so complex that the single data scientist might not be able to make the difference anymore in that sense.
I don't know if that is good or bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to a question from someone in the chat. Do you think data science students who work in the medical field should have medical knowledge? And I asked this first to Bart.
I think it definitely makes sense that when you really want to become a data scientist in the medical field, that you start to get to learn basic knowledge about the human body or the things you're looking at. In my own experience, I started as an industrial design student in medical projects. I, for example, started to measure the heart rate and the respiration rate with a very sensitive pressure foil. And for me, it was really important to start to understand the basics of how this kind of sensor works, but also how the body works and what you are exactly measuring. Because in quite a lot of cases, you're also interested in the outliers in the data. So if there's an outlier, what's the cause of it? Is it because this body of the person, this behavior is behaving in a different way than the normal body does? Is it caused by a problem in the sensor? Is it caused by something else? So I think to be able to identify these kind of outliers, it's often quite important to understand the human body and whether it could be coming, where this problem could be coming from.
Okay, Thomas, you want to respond?
Yeah, so basically this is the generalist versus the specialist discussion again, but I think this sort of circles back to the fact that in every industry you're working in, you need some, or let's say practice you need a sense of the business that you're working in. And as a student, I mean, as everybody's just freshly out of from their out of school, so to say, out of university, I think that just needs a couple of, at least I would say a minimum 1 year of experience, just getting your hands dirty and working through the different processes that that you come across, and learn as much as you can, and then take the time to specialize, right?
Is that a long description for an internship, or do you mean it in a wider sense?
Internship is the sort of the same formula, right? But I think it's I think that is the way forward. So
okay, Bart, you want to respond again on this response?
Yes, so I agree that in 1 year, if you, for example, just go into such a project without too much experience, you can learn quite a lot in just reading for 1 month and then starting with building something. So it's not really necessary to have a training as a medical student or too much experience. It can be really helpful, but you can actually learn, if it's the project is small enough, you can learn quite a lot in just a very short period.
All right. Now, Thomas, do you raise your hand again, or is this still from...
Sorry.
A minute ago. Okay. Then I would like to introduce the final two topics. One is a bit perhaps controversial, but I would like to ask it anyway, because I think we are here also with an interesting group. This question, yes. Data science suffers from a lack of diversity, and I ask this also knowing that we are a panelist of white men together, and I would like to know if there, even within this homogeneous group, are different opinions, and let's see what you say and what the people say that are viewing, and how diverse the answers are to this question. And there are many ways how to answer and what arguments you can bring to the table. But as the scores come in, let's see if people agree or not. And it's a close call so far, and let's see how it develops.
Did we lose 20 people already? No, it's 20 seconds delay.
20 seconds delay, so it takes a bit longer. And it's, of course, something people might want to think twice about. Mm-hmm. So the no group seems to get bigger. Emile, what's your take on this statement?
Yeah, if I look at the diversity in terms of how the distribution is among students that enroll in all kind of, let's say, educational programs related to data science and artificial intelligence, then I think that we are improving at a high pace. So the number of, let's say, not just female against male, but also, let's say, students from other backgrounds, so that bring in diversity from another perspective, because we would not like to narrow it down to a gender diversity thing. It refers to diversity in very many different aspects. So I think that we are doing great from that respect. And that is because many people think that data science, but especially artificial intelligence, is a true, let's say, interdisciplinary type of activity. But on the other hand, if I look at, let's say, many of the companies that are really, let's say, ruled in this domain, and I look at the composition of their talents, then we still see that it is a little bit skewed, as we call it. So there are still, because often it comes from the domain of computer science, and that was classically, or even electrical engineering for the worse. Those domains were dominated by white male persons. So that's the situation, but the promise is very good that this will change.
Okay, and I'm sure there is data that will support that, but let's ask our consultant, Joost. What do you think about this question?
I think also what Emile said, it's true that there's no reason why data science should not be diverse, because it's something that is very interesting for a lot of different people, female, male, from all kinds of cultures as well. And it's also what we see at our company. We have women. We have, I think now about 15 different countries represented in our company. But still you see, and I think it's also a Dutch problem, is that indeed the technical studies are very dominated by male population, unfortunately, and that should change. Yeah, but that's not just a data science problem.
Okay, I can imagine that ASML is also dealing with this issue. Yes. Thomas, how's the situation at ASML in this respect?
Yeah, so it has been let's say a company-wide topic for I think a couple of years already, from especially from recruitment perspective, and we actively keep track of it. We try to. So the awareness is growing on that aspect. In the data science field, it's funny that only the let's say the consultants we work with, but that's just from, in this case, my the project I'm working on are all female and external. So apparently there's still some room for improvement. But overall, let's say on the I don't. Apparently the rest of the people agree in the chat that there's not really a diversity problem. I think that's a fair statement. I don't see it necessarily bound to either gender, culture, background, etc.
But the underlying assumption, of course, is that diverse teams perform better or create better algorithms. Do you agree?
I think so, yes. I mean, you can always benefit from people that have backgrounds in different companies from different sectors they may have worked in to bring you fresh perspectives. Also, coming back on the generalist versus the specialist topic again, I think you also need both to forward, right? So you need someone who's very much detailed, for example, in R and Python, if that's new for your company. So that's sort of the synergy that you're seeking between the two, right?
Okay. Final thought from Bart.
I don't think I have much to add to this discussion. I agree.
Okay, well, you're still in the startup phase, so you can change this yourself. I don't know if it's part of your recruitment criteria, but most people technically look for people who are like themselves. But I am curious if you are actively looking for people who are more opposite.
So within our startup currently, one of our main focuses for the next people we will want to add to our team is to have people from other countries. Until now, we have mainly added people who are Dutch. We are collaborating with people from African countries as well, but they are not officially part of the startup right now. So it's high on our list to have people from diverse backgrounds. We started with a male-only team, and the last 3 people who joined are female, so we are growing there as well. Yeah. So we completely agree. It's really crucial to have a diverse team within a startup, within the data science, within your teams, in general.
Okay, and in the chat I see that it was Diversity Day yesterday. I was not aware of that. Diversity, someone asked, what about diversity within the top of organizations, but also within universities? Do they have to lead by example, Emile?
Yes, because if let's say the management acts differently from what let's say generally is being expected that would happen, then things get attention. So what we often say is that what you say, what you do, and your symbolics, as we call it, they all 3 should be aligned. So if you agree as a management team that you should have, let's say, persons from other countries, other cultures, that you should have more women. And if you look at the board picture taken of last year and you see 7 male persons of 65 years old and all Dutch, then something is wrong in the message. So, well, that would be my answer.
Okay. We have already spent 45 minutes together, so it's time to come to a conclusion. Perhaps it's nice to ask each one of you a final question, what you would like to give the viewers. Let's say majority is students, young professionals. It could be a piece of advice that you would like to have had when you were a student. It could be a book, an article, anything that would bring the career of a young data scientist further. Thomas, can I start with you? Do you have any food for thought for these viewers?
Sure. Go experiment. I mean, when I was just leaving college, I had a general, let's say, sort of an idea of what I wanted, but not exactly. So that's why you go into consulting, because then you get to see a lot. Maybe Joost can relate. I don't know. He's. Go out there, see what your. Make sure. So it's maybe a bit of a millennial thing, but it is good that it's fun. It's not. Let's say bad to work hard to make sure, let's say, to get what you want in the end, but try to come up with sort of an idea of what you would like to do in the rest of your life.
Okay. Yeah.
As an advice.
Okay. Bart, your piece of advice, your article, book, song, can be anything.
So maybe specifically for people who are interested in AI for healthcare. I've recently got in touch with Michaela van der Schaar, a professor who works in Cambridge, I think. And she has van der Schaar labs on the internet, and she's looking at, she has now all kinds of meetings with clinicians and professionals and trying to get data scientists and healthcare specialists with each other in touch. And she is having these sessions revolutionizing healthcare. And I think they are really interesting to maybe follow a little bit as if you are interested in healthcare and search for them on the internet. So I think there is a lot of interest from both sides in these projects. And she's trying to build a community of clinicians and data scientists.
Okay, it would be nice if that can be researched now by the sidekick here technically and put in the chat so that there's more conversion. Joost, what would be your final remark?
I first have to agree with Thomas. I think it's really important to indeed experiment and to find a place where you can not just be very goal-oriented, but also can explore a little bit. Also, when you're young, try to go across the globe. That's easier when you're young than once you start to have a family. And finally, I think what is also important is to challenge your mind. So as a data scientist, you're very much thinking about that the data is the answer to everything, but keep reading also from the other side. Keep yourself interested also in the other stories. For me, a good way is to read dystopian novels, like if it all goes wrong, where do we end up? But that keeps it real. That makes that you keep a healthy challenge. Yeah, you keep a healthy challenge towards the thing you're doing.
Yeah, in that respect, I cannot help but recommending Black Mirror in that respect to have a look at. I think it's healthy to balance it. Yeah. All right, and Emile, your closing remarks for this talented group of viewers.
Yes, well, there is little to add to all the good advices of the colleagues in the call. Maybe two let's say, short comments from my side. So the first one would be take ownership of your own career development. So don't expect someone else to govern the ways or the rules for you as a person. Then you can grow old before something happens. So assume responsibility of your own development. And then I would like to challenge our young students to discover their skills and turn that into their passion and not the other way around. And the reason to do so is that if you have skills, and everyone has skills, then you know what you are good at. Then you can tell the teams why you should be on the team for that type of skill that you are good at. And the teams will ask you for that. And you will feel good about it and grow old while feeling good. And if you only follow your passion and you don't have any well-developed skills, the probability or the chance that you will become old and happy at the same time is not so large.
Okay, well, these words probably resonate with the viewers, and they will have food for thought to think about in this afternoon. Thank you very much, all panelists, Joost, Bart, and Thomas, and thank you, scientific sidekick Emile Aarts,
you're welcome.
for this nice interaction. And I think we managed to, in challenging times, to have a good conversation together. And well, of course, the viewers can judge, but I think that we did pretty well, and I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for the insights. Joost, I see that Itility is also giving a presentation. Will that be you or a colleague of yours?
I will be presenting indeed in the afternoon, and I will explain why it is important either to be a specialist or a generalist.
Oh, nice cliffhanger there. Nice cliffhanger. So let me also give everyone a few practical notes. At 2 o'clock, there will be a LinkedIn training, of course, online as well, from TU Eindhoven Skills Lab. There will be in the virtual market, Van der Lande and Ion. They will give a presentation. No, they will be in the virtual market, so they will interact with people. And the presentation started at 2:30, I see here, from Itility and Rabobank, and Joost Meijer is present there. If you don't take part there, there's good news, because in the very nice app Borrel, you can get some last tickets if you contact the help desk. The help desk on this DEX day, of course. The number is 0649007922. I think it's best to send a WhatsApp, and the number will also be put in the chat right now. So go and get some of these final tickets because there are some cancellations, so you can be lucky. I wish you all a pleasant afternoon, and I thank my panelists once again for their participation, and I see you later today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.